When you're playing and you come across some fast notes in your music, do you just completely freak out sometimes? Well, that's pretty normal, and in this video, I'm going to talk about how to get over that. Before we get into this fast note freakout stuff, I actually want to give a little update because the Quick Start Clarinet YouTube channel has recently passed 100 subscribers, which I'm super happy about, and thank you so much to everybody who is a subscriber and everybody who's going to go click that subscribe button right now. So having passed 100 subscribers, I was trying to think of some cool things that we could do for like a special 100 subscriber video. And a lot of YouTubers will do like a Q&A or maybe tell a little bit of a story about themselves. And I thought about doing both of those things, but I think with the Q&A, like you're welcome to ask questions in the comments whenever you want with anything that you have about the clarinet, and I'll always answer those in the comments. So I don't know if that would be so interesting. And then I thought about doing a sort of like embarrassing story about like something that I didn't know about clarinet for the longest time or something like that. But after thinking it over, I was like, you know what I think would be the best thing to do to celebrate 100 subscribers? I just want to give you some really valuable stuff, and in this video it's going to be packed with some of my most valuable information, and this is something that I would probably normally sort of want to save for like a paid for course, but I'm going to put it in this as a thank you for being a subscriber and a congratulations for us reaching 100 subscribers here on this channel. And finally, if you find the stuff in this video or the stuff in my other videos valuable, please share it with your friends and your other clarinet playing colleagues, because that's how we continue to grow as a channel and get more subscribers and get more great clarinet playing information out there to the people. And now let's go on to talking about the fast finger freakouts. So to get started, I want to talk about what fast finger or like fast note freaking out is. It's super common, especially in younger players. I did this all the time in high school. You'd be playing along in your music and there's like a fast run or like scale that goes up and you're like, oh man, fast notes, and you just play through it like pretty much as fast as you can with more or less random notes, and things happen and you go on with your life. As I got more experienced and more professional, I realized that those are actually individual notes and there's actually a rhythm there that you can play through and play precisely, and your fingers are plenty capable of moving through pretty fast notes, so there's no reason to freak out about it. But I want to give you a couple examples of what this might be like so that you can identify if you're playing through your music and just having fast note freak out and playing some random stuff without much rhythm to it. And then you can break it down and make it better. And I'll also show you that in the second half of this video. So make sure that you stay tuned for that, because that's going to be a really, really powerful lesson on how to overcome this fast note freakout. So here's an example of something that I'm working on in my music right now from a piece. And you see there's a lot of fast notes here, and they might make you sort of freak out. And I want to talk about a couple different sort of interpretations of this that may count as this sort of fast note freakout. So the first degree fast note freakout, which is the worst, is looking at this and being like, wow, that's a lot of notes, that goes really fast, and just wiggling your fingers as fast as you can and totally ignoring the beat and the rhythm. So for this demonstration of the first degree fast note freakout, it's important that you know what the steady beat is, because you're not going to be able to figure it out by what I play. So this is the beat. Now I'm gonna start right on the run, so I'll leave out the first note in that measure, and then play through those two measures to the downbeat, and theoretically it should line up with this sort of steady beat. So let's see what happens. So keep that beat going in your head and then listen to my first degree fast note freakout. So you can hear in that, that's sort of the most elementary level and the worst version of it, where it's just a true complete freak out. You see the fast notes, you don't even start on time because it's like, fast notes, and just wiggle your fingers pretty much as fast as you can, playing totally random notes and then not even ending on time. So that's sort of like the first degree, the worst offensive fast note freak out. Then there's a second degree fast note freakout. This is where you actually start on time and you end on time, but pretty much everything in between is still random. So that might sound something like this. Again, let's get our beat going. So you can hear that's starting to get the effect and sort of the gesture of we have this scale going up. I'm starting pretty close to beat 2 and ending pretty close to beat 1 of the following measure. But the stuff in between isn't clear or isn't able to really hear each of those notes and really know what even that rhythm is. And then finally we have another example, and this is what I would call sort of like a 3rd degree fast note freakout or a false alarm fast note freakout. So you're looking at this and you're probably like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of fast note. What are those, like 30-second notes? And a lot of them in a row, and it's not just a scale. There's like different weird intervals happening, and it's not super pattern based. So when you're first looking at this, you might be really freaking out. But in this case, it's sort of a false alarm because really these notes aren't that fast. This is how this part actually goes. So even though there's 30-second notes, it's a really slow tempo. So the quarter note is 56, which is nice and slow. And then the 8th note is 112. So this is just like 16th notes at 112, which isn't that fast. It's really not that bad at all. So this is sort of a false alarm fast note freakout where somebody might be playing through this if you were sight reading and they get to hear and they'd be feeling the tempo, but then they'd be like, oh, fast notes. Okay, 30-second notes. That means as fast as possible, right? And then your end, like, when it's only a half measure's gone by and you've played the whole 2 measures and it's a bad time. So make sure that you always know what the rhythm is and you're not freaking out in a false alarm moment like this. So what I just said about knowing the rhythm, that's sort of the secret to overcoming any fast note freakout. Whether it's like the first example or that second example, what you have to do in order to play the notes properly and get all of the notes in there is to make sure that you're really confident and really have a good understanding of what the rhythm is and how to play the rhythm. I talk about this a lot, and you probably already understand that rhythm is the most important part of playing music, and getting the rhythm right determines if everything else is right or not. So it makes sense, but on these fast notes, again, we tend to just freak out and totally throw out all of our fundamentals. We forget to move our fingers well, we forget to play the clarinet well, we forget to count the rhythm well, and it just freaks out and all goes out the window. But we don't want to do that. We want to take these fast notes and realize they're exactly the same as anything else. You just figure out the rhythm, you play the clarinet really well on it, you get the notes and the style, and you're good to go. It's just moving a little bit quicker, but the secret to that is going slow and fixing it. So now I'm going to get into the secret and this super awesome trick to figuring out these fast notes so that you're not freaking out on them. So the first step to overcoming fast note freakout is to figure out the rhythm. That's the most important thing. Once you have the rhythm and you see how many notes are in each beat and how the rhythm and the notes relate to the steady beat, then you can break those down into smaller groups and then practice these smaller, more digestible groupings. And then it's easier to put together and easier to keep track of all of those notes when you play. Ultimately, in order to play really any notes, but particularly fast notes really effectively, really steadily, and really evenly, you have to be able to keep track of what that rhythm is and keep track of the steady beat the whole time that you're playing through it. So going back to the first example where I demonstrated the 1st and 2nd degree fast note freakout, we can look at this rhythm and break it down into groups that make sense. So starting with that 2nd beat in the first measure of this example, we can see that we have a sextuplet, which means that we have 6 notes in that beat, and we can see that the first one is a rest. The way that I count sextuplets is usually triplet, triplet, so 2 groups of 3. So that's already a grouping, and then we can look at this and just figure out how that grouping fits together. So the first note is a rest, so 1 will be a rest, and then we have 2, 3 is the F sharp and the G sharp, and then A, B, C sharp is 1, 2, 3. So you can see how we have these 2 different groups of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now the first beat of the next measure is another sextuplet. So D, E, F sharp is 1, 2, 3. G sharp, A, B is another 1, 2, 3. Now this next beat is a little bit of an interesting one because we have a septuplet. So that means that there's 7 notes in one beat. Unfortunately, 7 doesn't divide evenly into 2 or 3, so you have to do sort of an asymmetrical grouping here. So the way I'm going to do it is a group of 3 and then a group of 4. The trick here is going to be to remember that the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in the sextuplet and the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the 7, those 3s, even though it's still groups of 3s, they're not exactly the same speed. So the sextuplet is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then the 7 is 1, 2, 3. So it's like a tiny bit faster. But once we have the groupings down and we know how this lines up with a steady beat, that'll come pretty naturally and pretty easy. So now that we have these groupings figured out of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, now we can figure out how to actually practice that. So that was pretty much the first step, is figuring out the rhythm, figuring out the groupings, and knowing how it works with the steady beat. Now the second step is to isolate those small groups and make it digestible chunks so that we can get it in our fingers and get really comfortable with it. So the way that we do that, this is the super big trick, and if you can remember this and implement this in your playing, it's going to make a big difference for you. So the trick here is to practice from the second note of the grouping to the first note of the next grouping. So this is actually pretty easy because we already have the rest on the very first note of the first group. So we're already going to be practicing 2, 3, 1. So in order to do that, we're just going to repeat that first group starting on the second note, going to the downbeat of the second group, downbeat of the second group. So 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. The reason why we practice this is because that's the way music works. We're always leading to the next beat and moving forward in music. I talk a lot about how rhythm is giving this steady beat and sort of this grid that the meter gives us, and then placing the rhythms into that. But in reality, when you're playing and when an audience member is listening, they don't always really know what that steady beat is, because that's just something that's internal for you and for the group. But what they do know is how the rhythm portrays that beat. So even though we have this steady grid that we're putting our rhythms to the audience, it's actually the rhythm that creates that feeling of the meter. And the way that we do that is we have to always be leading forward to the next beat. So instead of having beat, react, react, beat, react, react, we have beat, lead to the next 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 beat. And that's why we practice this way, because this gives you the most control over the rhythm and also helps you to convey the meter and the music of it really clearly. So I'm going to demonstrate how I would practice this, and I'm going to do those groupings where I start on the second note of the group and go to the first note of the next group, and I'm just going to repeat that on one group until I feel super comfortable with it, and then I'm going to go on to the next group and repeat that until I feel super comfortable with it, and the next group and the next group, and so on until I'm done with the fast notes and I don't have to freak out anymore. As you're doing this, don't worry about the rhythm too much. As with everything, it's better to be slow and really comfortable and confident and able to really comprehend and be thinking about 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, and really have that going in your mind and being really clear on the groupings rather than worrying about going too fast. If you can't go slow and absolutely perfect and in control, then you're not going to have a chance going fast. It also would be a great idea to do this with a metronome so that you're staying really steady and really in control of the beat. I'm not demonstrating it with a metronome because it's hard to get the metronome to work right over the video, But if you are practicing this, do it with a metronome and do it in like eighth notes. So you have the grouping 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So now that I've practiced each group repeatedly and feel really confident with each group on its own, now I'm going to practice going together and going with a steady beat and making sure that I'm still thinking of those groupings as I'm playing through it. I still don't feel quite confident that the septuplet is exactly precise, so I'm going to isolate that and improve that. Still confidently thinking through 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, I'm feeling a lot better about that. As you're doing these groupings, even if you're doing just the individual chunks or you're putting a bunch of it together, make sure that you're always really catching that 2 so that you're being propelled forward. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Always thinking of that. That 2 is sort of your springboard into the next beat and leads you forward. So now I'm going to try integrating that all together again and seeing if I can do the whole thing, getting each of those propulsions forward. Great, so that's all of it at a nice, slow, super comfortable tempo. Fast note freakout doesn't happen so much if you're not going fast, right? But now the next step is to gradually speed that up. So as you're speeding up, it's a good idea to go back to those small chunks and make sure that you can do each of those small chunks slowly and then gradually faster. I'm gonna go ahead and sort of skip through the gradually speeding up just so you can get an idea of more towards the end goal, but make sure to check out my metronome video and how to improve your technique efficiently using a metronome to see how that process of gradually speeding up works. But I'm gonna skip ahead to where we're getting those small chunks, but nice and fast and comfortable, and then see if I can put it all together without freaking out. So you can see by breaking this down, you can start to find the bits that are trickier to do for your fingers. So in this one, that whole first beat of the second measure, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B to C sharp, all of that is sort of this left hand stuff, and then we have some pinky stuff happening, and that's a little bit of a trickier area to play on the instrument. So you can spend a little bit more time doing that and breaking that down and getting comfortable with that area. And then another bonus tip sort of for this is as you get going faster, you might want to make your groups a little bit bigger. So instead of thinking 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, maybe breaking it up into bigger groups. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So that you're doing it by the whole beat rather than the eighth note. So every grouping is leading to the next real quarter note beat rather than leading to the eighth note beats. I hope that helps you to not freak out so much when you come across fast notes in your music. Remember that everything, no matter how fast it is a specific rhythm, and the subdivision of the beat is very clear, and it's always related back to that steady beat. And if you practice using this grouping method and slow down to where it's really comfortable and make it small, bite-sized, digestible chunks, and then make sure that you're continuing to think about those groupings and you always have those numbers going in your head so you're keeping track of every single note throughout the fast notes, then you're going to be in so much better shape when you have to play these things in a performance or in rehearsal. And finally, thanks so much for watching this, and thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and helping us to achieve over 100 subscribers. I'm super excited about that. And remember, if you want more tips and tricks about how to play the clarinet, go to the link in the description, quickstartclarinet.com/join, to become a member of the official Quickstart Clarinet community. It is 100% free, and you'll get some cool handouts and some more training and tips and tricks delivered straight to your email from me. Thanks so much for watching this, and I will see you in another video.